John Lennox has a triple doctorate in the fields of science and math and is a professor at Oxford University. Today we're going to hear him answer questions from the audience after a lecture he gave on Genesis chapter 37. That chapter raises many questions that we're still debating today, but Dr. Lennox handles them eloquently with his remarkable intellect and wit. Let's get right to the first question.
You touched on this a little bit this morning, but it's about God's sovereignty versus humans' free will.
Yes.
And I'm in a dialogue with an atheist, and he's a brilliant guy, really is. And I have my own ways of responding to him, but I want to know what you would say if he says that how can God be sovereign over everything if he's an all-powerful God, and also not have given us a deterministic, how does God give us free will and not be all-powerful? And also, if God knew that humanity was going to screw up, we were going to sin, then how is it fair for God, knowing that was going to happen, to punish humanity for its sins? So again, I have responded in some ways to him, and I think it's pretty comprehensive. I just wanted to hear what you...
I think it's pretty comprehensive. How many hours have you got? Now, that is an immensely important question, and it's in a sense one that we'll be dealing with gradually as we go through. But I'm very glad you posed it from the perspective of atheism. I want to say one basic thing about it, first of all, because I'll go more into detail, and that is this. The way you phrased it is the way it's normally phrased. How could God be sovereign over history and give you free will? Well, when people ask me that question, I ask them, what is consciousness? And of course they tell me they don't know. They don't even know, our physicist friends, what energy is. Those are much simpler things than the question you have asked me. You asked me the question, how? Now, the how of these deep things, there are many of them we just cannot answer. How did God speak the universe into existence? I don't know. But that he spoke it into existence, I do believe there's evidence for it. So I distinguish between the how and the that. And the importance of that is this, that you can see the evidence within Scripture and within experience as well, that is the most sensible way to understand the universe. In other words, I take Scripture seriously. And when Scripture tells me that God rules, his kingdom is, was, and ever shall be, I believe that. When I hear the Son of God stand on earth and say to Jerusalem, how often I would have gathered you under my wings and you wouldn't, I believe that too. That we have a real capacity to say either yes or no to God. How that works, I don't know. Let me illustrate that for you, because you might just find this useful. And stop me if I've said this yesterday, but I don't think I did. I did say it recently somewhere. I'm getting old. You have to forgive me. But I was asked at a big lecture I gave to about 500 physicists, very senior physicists in England. A man came up to me afterwards and said, you know, that was a very interesting talk on science and religion, but I perceive that you are a Christian. I said, you're very sharp. And he said, but look, he said, you know, as a Christian, you're obliged to believe that Jesus is the Son of God. I said, that's right. He said, explain to me how that can be. And I said, well, very easily, but as a quid pro quo, I'll ask you a question. And so I asked him what consciousness was, and he said he didn't know. And then I asked him what energy was, and he says, well, we can measure it and use it. I said, that wasn't my question. What is it? He said, I don't know. So I said, that's interesting. But you believe in both consciousness and energy, don't you? And you don't know what they are. should I write you off as a physicist? And he said, please don't. But I said, you were going to write me off 5 minutes ago, because I couldn't explain to you how Jesus could be God and man at the same time. But you observe that I believe it quite correctly. Tell me, I said, why do you believe in consciousness and energy? Well, that was a bit too philosophical for him. So I had to help him, because I'm a kind person at heart. And I said, you believe them not because you understand them fully, but because of their explanatory power. He said, that's right. And I said, that's exactly why I believe that Jesus is both God and man. Not because I understand how. If we don't understand the nature of energy, how could we possibly understand the nature of God? But I believe it because there's evidence that it's true. Just as I believe that light is both waves and particles, however difficult I find that to get together. And you can see the relevance to your question. It's one of those questions where people, because they can't integrate it intellectually, tend to push to one side or the other. It seems to me that Scripture teaches both things, and that these stories that we're looking at are an unpacking of how it works, so that we can see how it relates to our lives.